Hello, and welcome to our podcast with me, Mark, and my associate, Steve. Here, we look at the headlines or what's happening in the world, and we look behind what the mainstream media may be saying about it. Ask some questions and maybe come up with some answers. Looking back over some past podcasts, we've been quite successful in some of our analysis of what's been going on. So anyway, over to Steve, who has been scrutinizing the media to see what he can find. Okay, Steve.
Well, hi there, people. Yeah, so the thing is, in the UK, what's been making the headlines most recently, still the last few days has been with Holly Willoughby and the Philip Schofield episode, but that seems to have died down now, because Harry of Meghan and Harry fame has taken the Sun newspaper to court about this. He thinks that the Sun has been hacking his telephone, even though he doesn't have any proof. He just thinks it. So good luck on that one. But what are we going to look at today? We're going to keep in Europe and surrounding area, because the other day 2 nights ago I had a conversation with a friend of mine from the UK, and he was using the headlines that he has, that he gets from the British press and that. He said he likened the bombing of that the Katorka Dam in Ukraine, in the Donbass region of Ukraine, has been likened it to the dam busters, the bouncing bomb, which I thought was a little odd. I didn't really see the comparison, apart from the fact that it was a dam. And a friend of his said, yes, I wonder what the cowardly Russians will do next. So I had to chime in with that little conversation that they were having, and that I said that there needs to take a lot of care that the problems that are happening in the north are not going to spill over to the European Union and also Great Britain by default, because it's near. My friend, he asked me if it was anything to do with the mayors, the problems in the Balkan regions. And he just thought it was, that certain mayors were elected, and I had to give him some background information. So let me explain. Kosovo, which is where the mayor situation is happening, is an equivalent to the Donbass region in Ukraine. Kosovo is an area that has been declared independent by its people, and the majority is Serbian. The majority of the people is Serbian, at least in the northern part of Kosovo. The wider area doesn't agree with this. However, certain countries do, and so it has this sort of country type aspect to it. And what happened is that in the northern part of Kosovo, where the majority are Serbians, they had an election. Only the Serbians, the way the elections were being run, the Serbians didn't agree, and so they boycotted the elections. They didn't vote. And so obviously the opposition received the votes that were cast, and then the United Nations stepped in, entered into Kosovo, took out the Serbian mayors from office, and put the Albanians in, because they were the ones that had received the votes in this sort of ad hoc election. And so the Serbians were fighting against the United Nations. 4 or 5 people died in the conflict. And that I explained that to my friend in the UK, and he just couldn't believe what he was reading, because we were in a forum, we were in a forum situation. And I said that, if the UK starts meddling in this, and if European countries are meddling in this, it's going to bleed over to Europe, and the Europe and the Great Britain, they're going to be putting kindling on a fire, on a spark. So it didn't do any other. A day or two passed, and Russia warned Belgium about sending weapons to Ukraine, because the attacks in Belgorod, the recent attacks in Belgorod, were found to have used Belgian weapons. And so that's the first thing. The Russians said to Belgium, don't do this anymore. And an official, the president of the Republic, and I'll say this in the best manner I can, Supishka. He's called Milorad Dodik, and I think that's the republic of where Kosovo wanted to break away from. He said that the UK, Britain, is looking to overthrow the Belgrade government, the Serbian government in Belgrade, which, when you add it all together, they're trying to push, or rather, they're trying to pull more Europe and the UK into the fights that are happening in the Balkans and in Eastern Europe. And this isn't without the help of the Europeans and the British, because nobody would say that. The Belgians wouldn't be warned if they weren't supplying weapons, and our friend Dodik wouldn't be saying this if the British Secret Service weren't going around. He even said how they did it. In this republic, there were a couple of what the Americans like to call mass shootings. Going to a shopping centre and shooting some maniac, shooting people.
Yeah.
And the Secret Service were in this republic to spread rumors and lies to make the government look worse than what it's trying to do under the circumstances. And that's why this guy said, back off. The British are trying to overthrow this government. And so, we're in that situation now where we just have to suck it and see what happens in the future. The bombing of the dam, coming back to the dam being bombed, served purpose for nobody, because the land can't be used anymore. It's flooded out. Where it needed to be dry has been flooded out, and where it needed to be wet is drying out.
Yeah.
And the drying out part is for agriculture, and they aren't getting the water now to irrigate the crops. And the dry parts, the villages and towns, were all flooded out. and this drew attention to the atomic power station, which is nearby, where the water levels are dropping, and they need the water there to cool down the
reactor, basically.
you know. So, and the Ukrainians have attacked that power station several times, trying to take control of it. You know, yet if they're not careful, if that goes up, then I mean, I remember when Chernobyl went up. You know, and people had to stay indoors, keep the doors and windows locked.
Yeah.
And this one's a lot bigger and a lot closer. So
yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, we won't touch really on the Harry and the when everything else going on the
that's just
yeah.
I throw that in just to just advise what's
yeah.
been rolling in the UK.
I mean,
and
yes, obviously, yeah.
That's what they're being fed.
Yeah.
That's what the British people are being fed when all this is happening.
Yeah, well, that's the Colosseum Games in a way. That's the diversion, the media, rather than talk about what's really happening. Yeah, I mean, this trick is as old as Grecian and Roman democracy and spin has been going on. Yes, I mean, yeah, feed the masses the fluff, and they ignore the important stuff. Yeah, obviously, I'm not just going to single out the UK here. I mean, none of us, our secret services are what they are. They're monitoring. They might be involved. I mean, Hollywood, mainstay of Hollywood action films, etc., and probably some British ones, spy thrillers, etc. It is Eastern Europe is an issue. Always has been, not just in recent times, going back centuries. I mean, there's been a recent film on Netflix called Medieval, all about their dislike of each other, to put it bluntly. They're not one united great big Eastern European bloc. The Russians.
I think the West needs to learn to let them get on with it amongst themselves.
Yeah, that's it. They're perfectly capable of, I'd say happily having their disputes, but that's probably not quite the right term to use in our politically correct times. But yes, we just have to watch it doesn't, as you say, overspill one way or another. By getting directly involved or indirectly involved, we're not helping the region. As we've said before, we can't support the Russians in what they're exactly doing, even if we can understand some of the background behind it and the thinking or the excuses that we've managed to give some thinking behind it. Obviously, what's going on in Kosovo and Serbia, again, they had their civil wars there. There's still not resolved their own internal hearts and minds on that one, how they feel. They are new democracies, the same age as Brazil in effect. Brazil 86, their democracies are 89. They're still finding their way, feeling, if you like. Yes, I mean, Russia kept peace in the area for a long time, if you can call it peace. I mean, yes, it was an iron fist type of peace. Again, which is centuries old for the region, and they're all capable. Lots of regimes are capable of doing that. Remember, a few years ago, Ukraine was considered to be a very bad country to do business with because of different elements. Got rid of one administration there, replaced it with another one, which provokes obviously some actions of the bigger neighbour as well. Like you say, we don't.
I think.
Yeah.
Just you said something that sparked a thought in my mind. You said, they ruled with an iron fist, and Russia ruled with an iron fist in the old USSR.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But that's the language that everybody understood. And I remember Saddam Hussein
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
Iraq. He said, to the world, he said, look, uh, for me to rule here, it isn't an easy job.
Mm.
If you remove me from office, you will all burn in hell.
Mm.
Simply because he was classed as a dictator, because
Yeah.
he ruled with an iron fist as well.
Well, yeah.
But he knew that the people there, if given half a chance,
Mm.
they'd they'd fight amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And it's doing exactly that. The Americans went in, took him out, took out Gaddafi, and the whole region.
Mm.
20 years, more
Yeah.
than 20 years ago, they started that,
Mm.
and the US is still involved with it.
Yes.
Because they couldn't control what was going on.
Yeah. It is a very, very difficult thing. Not our perception of democracy is suitable for everywhere.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
I
Like
mean,
like you said, it's a different currency. It's a
yeah.
different language.
I, I mean, we're struggling with our own form of democracy at the moment in many ways, as
Right.
we've discussed. Um, yeah, was it democracy is the worst form of government, bar every other one which has been tried and failed.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's been attributed to Winston Churchill. From my understanding, he probably borrowed it from somewhere else as well. But it is a very, very troublesome era in our European history, and it is a European issue. I know the Americans always say, well, when we stay out of European problems, that's when they escalate, which has been true
Mm.
probably 80, 100 years ago. We've managed to now give all these people on both sides, and don't forget the Russians are not a technological backward people. So we're doing what we think is readdressing the balance in the Ukraine. I'm going to be open about the Ukraine, quite honestly. I mean, this dam blowing, however it happened. I mean, I would say I immediately thought scorched earth policy by the
Mm.
Ukrainians. Then I thought, but as you said, it doesn't really make any sense. Yeah, scorched earth. I know it's ironic. It's water, but yeah,
Mm.
you burn everything to stop anyone being able to use it. It was a
Yeah.
Russian. It's always been an Eastern European trick. If you're going to do a retreat, you just burn everything and stop it being of use to anyone.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean that was my immediate fault. But why would you do that? You're still going to have to need, if the Ukrainians are holding their own, if not winning the war, they're going to need that. The Russians would need it as well because it's part of their objectives as well. Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, it is difficult to understand what is going on the ground. We're getting so many conflicting reports, and even from Russia itself. One minute we're told we don't know what's happening in Russia. The next we're saying, oh, President Putin is in trouble. He's going to be removed from power any moment. Well, how do you know this if we don't know what's going on? I saw a BBC report the other day reporting from a town in Russia that was talking about they've got this rock called the Peace Rock. And I can't remember the name of the town. And some people had it removed because it's got all the names of cities that this particular city is twinned with or sister. Yeah. And yeah, some people called it removed because a lot of the names on there at the moment, the twinning or the sistering has been suspended for reasons. And there does seem a strong resolve going around. There is a strong resolve from probably people against what's happening in the West. I mean, obviously, maybe nobody on the microphone is going to say to the BBC, I dislike Putin. But the fact that the BBC can do a report like that, which wasn't exactly praising the administration in Russia, is interesting to me. Yet they're telling us, so we don't know what's going on in Russia. So It is a very, very strange world we're in at the moment, given that you can get a report out of anywhere in the world. It's not like a previous conflicts. I'm thinking the Falklands, which took 2 weeks for a reel of film to get back. We're talking about something that can be recorded and beamed instantaneously. What do? We record this podcast within an hour. I've got it online if I work hard enough with it. Yeah, it's a different world now. But we're struggling to understand exactly what is happening in Ukraine, even with all the mobile phones and everything else, the technology. It's like you say, you watch one report, we're not being told exactly what is happening up in the Kosovo. Obviously, we're not going to know the activities of certain services around the globe.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, yeah. I mean, yeah, they operate hopefully under government control, but I'm not always certain about that. Their respective countries' government control, but I'm not always certain about that now. Even internally or externally.
Before we get accused of conspiracy theories,
yeah,
let's move on to this subject.
Yeah, well, no,
it makes me.
Yeah. We'll probably be proved right next week. Hang on to the way it goes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm talking a bit tongue in cheek here. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to your next item.
So, to be discussed here. Apparently, I was going to bring a different subject, but last night I was lucky enough to drop on a report on a YouTube channel of a German lady, feet on the ground in Germany, knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Her name is Survival Lily. Her little nickname on a YouTube channel. And basically, the bulk of what she does is to showing people what kit to buy to if there's a nuclear holocaust, what kit to buy to survive in the open fields. She herself was brought up in the rural areas of Germany, and relatively recently had to go to the major cities,
Yeah.
But she came. I watched yesterday, and she came up with a statistic that 63% of Germans have a dream, and that dream is to have a detached family house with a garden. Not unlike the UK.
Yeah.
Is to have your own private house in a garden. But then she went on to say that in Munster, the city of Munster in Germany, they recently brought in a law where you can't build new detached family houses with a garden. You can't build them anymore.
Yeah.
You can only build new builds can only be communal.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here. Communal habitation.
Yeah.
Which is like a low-rise flats.
Yes.
And she said that building companies are buying detached family residences, demolishing them, and then building these low-rise or high-rise, depending on where it is, of flats. And she said the reason because of this is the amount of CO2 that is used when you build a detached family residence.
Yes.
It's far too high for what it is.
Yeah.
And so this is Germany going off heavily on the green bandwagon.
Yes.
She says that Munster is not the first city to have this law. She says that Hamburger's had it for a while now.
Yeah.
So I can only assume that in Hamburg and in Munster, in another 20 years' time, it's going to be full of these low-rise communal dwellings, and very few. She also said that there's an organization in Germany called the German Society for Nutrition. And this society suggests that 10 grams of meat a day is enough for your diet.
Yes.
10 grams. And she said, she explained what 10 grams of meat a day looks like. She said, in Germany, we have the Wurst, we have the sausages around about this big and this in diameter, she said. And if this became law, if we followed this, she said, we would only be allowed to have one sausage a month. And if you go at sausages and mustard, Bratwurst and Senf is that's German for sausage and mustard.
Yes.
If you go to places like Frankfurt and Munich, everybody stands outside the pubs and they have these on cardboard plates and they eat them like we'd have fish and chips in the UK.
Yeah.
It's very common thing. And she said, we Germans, we will not do this because we like our sausage, she says.
Yeah.
But also, she says something interesting. She says that the politicians live in these detached, rather ample dwellings for the family, which of course they do, because politicians are the same all over the world.
Yeah.
We can have it, but you can't.
Yeah.
We can have what we like, but you can't.
Elitism. Yes.
But what made it? What made her? What she said, which made me smile, was this last bit here, and I thought to myself, "Wow, how times have changed since I was a lad." She said that she, at heart, she's a hippie.
Yeah.
She says she wants all people to have a detached house, 1 or 2 cars in the garage, a swimming pool, and a large garden to grow vegetables. Which, for a hippie, that's quite a big shopping list. Because when I was a kid, a hippie, normally they kept on other people's.
Yeah.
They weren't for. They were about giving it to the man. They weren't on about. They were against all this physical possessions. They wanted to have the simple life. But what this lady was on about, it reminded me of the good life.
Yes, I remember that.
There's a comedy program called The Good Life in the UK, where one couple were from the very conservative, very what's the word I'm looking for? Driven by possessions. The very high class.
Materialistic.
Yes, that's the word. And the other couple where they would just get by with doing what they could with what they had, and and putting sheep in the garden to cut the grass and get the wool and things like this.
Yeah, I mean,
and this lady, this German lady, she said that she's a hippie, but she wants all this. It's like she's living in she's straddling 2 worlds. If she's a hippie, calls herself a hippie, unless a German hippie is like that, of course.
Well,
I've not met many German hippies that think that having a couple of cars in the garage and a swimming pool is part of being the hippie culture. It might be in Germany, I don't know.
Yeah,
They've got more money than us Brits.
well, yeah, I think we have to remember in the 60s that Germany had one or two other issues to do. They became very liberal, I think the Germans did. But to say anyway, I mean, Germany was basically annihilated in World War II, and built with, let's be honest, American money again, or contribution.
Mhm.
It was reparations in reverse. A bit controversial, but yes. Yeah, we're not going to let this happen again. We're not going to punish the Germans this time. We'll help them build up to be happy. Yeah, I mean, certainly yeah, people were going to Munich in the 60s and the 70s, and it was a happy hippie place, and Berlin it was, for musicians and creativity and everything else. And yeah, you got all sorts of things happen there, quite liberal in the attitudes. As to why she wants this, yes, well, I think the emphasis has moved. Now, when you talk about the good life in the 1970s, the ultimate dropout. Don't forget they've got the 60s, the dropout, Timothy O'Leary, tuning dropout, sort of thing. In the 70s, yeah, that's 75, I think that started. Very well written comedy, timing's perfectly brilliant. Yeah, when they were all Shakespearean actors effectively in it. Yeah, they would be. Yeah, but they were playing it, and people tried to copy it, which is even crazier, and found it couldn't be done. Not in today's world. Yeah, I remember reading about this. It was a really funny comedy to watch. It looked at, yeah, what would happen if somebody did do the ultimate dropout. He was working at a company. He was a very good at what he did, a draftsman, designer. So he had capabilities to understand how things functioned, and that carried through into what he did next, build a sheet pen or create a mechanical device which did things for them, or improvised. Yes, and then the neighbours, his best friend from work, but also was an executive for this company who wasn't very good at draftsman, but knew the politics of it all, and almost looked down on him, but was a bit envious at the same time that he could just do that, drop out.
Yeah.
But it was hard work. It did show it was hard work, dawn to dusk sort of work. But yeah, people did try and copy that, drop out, become the hippie. Maybe us moving to Brazil is looking for some sort of hippiedom in our own little way as well. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, she thinks like that. I've seen the video, or another one of her that she has done. Yeah, middle class hippie. Yeah, I can't survive without my comment. Yeah. Probably has more than we do. Yeah.
Well, this is it. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She does a podcast, of videos, sat in a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what sort of job she does, if she does a job.
That's podcast from sitting in her car.
But
And
if
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, she said that she'd bought a house. She's bought a house, so she's not short of a few bob.
Yeah. Well,
and so that's all I've got.
Yeah,
for today.
Yeah, well, we're nearly on time anyway, with our self-imposed time. I mean, yeah, very, very interesting. I mean, just touching on it, obviously, what's happening in Eastern Europe. We're all still watching with bated breath there. My feeling is that eventually people are going to have to start talking to each other in the region to stop the bloodshed. That might not sit comfortably with certain elements around the world that, I don't know, to need disruption is probably a bit too strong to say, but probably are quite happy for it to continue the way it is. We have to imagine that both sides eventually are going to run out of bodies to throw at the problem, quite literally.
Yeah. Sure.
And yeah, I mean, now they're using drones and things like this. Now, if Ukraine have got the abilities to strike into Russia, well, we know Russia's got the abilities to strike into Ukraine, the biggest surprise is that Ukraine still exists in any measure. If the Russians really wanted to get serious.
Yeah, I mean that's given me. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Mm.
You know, if Russia wanted to, it could obliterate Ukraine.
Yeah,
just like that. But it seems to be very, very restrained.
Yeah, I mean,
very, very restrained in what it's doing. It's almost trying to do the least it can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intention is actually to take over the Donbass and obviously keep the Crimea and take over the Donbass, which I think is the ultimate aim. I'm not sure if they've got designs on the rest of Ukraine. I mean, yeah, you'd have to look at it. Well, that might happen accidentally at some point. Because Zelensky is caught between two things now. He owes a lot of people a lot of favors, so to speak, from the West. He's owned by someone. He's either going to be owned by the Russians or owned by the Western nations, Europe in effect, and the US. He's got a horrible situation. I don't think he's probably the best person there. He's an accidental hero, or maybe he enjoys the limelight. I don't know which. I don't think he's a coward. I think he's strong mentally, but it's going to be interesting to see what his future is. I mean, if he doesn't curtail to what they,
I think,
yeah,
seeing some of the body language of Zelensky, it's almost like he's wanting to do one thing, but he can't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because his handlers won't allow him to.
Exactly.
It's like he's backed into a corner.
You
know, and it shows. It shows when you see some of his body language that he has.
Yeah, probably like a majority of world leaders at the moment. But yes, should he be any different? Right, another conspiracy theory, but yes. Okay. Well, we're running down on time, so I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. Obviously,
yeah. I'll keep the subjects that I had for today.
Yeah.
I'll keep the next time. Keep it as a surprise.
Yeah.
Keep it all under wraps.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
unless something happens in the news that really grabs my attention and is important for at least a couple of regions to take care of, to be aware of, you know.
Yes.
A lot of what I say is a bit of information from here, a bit of information from there, and you have to make the dots. And sometimes you make the picture.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't come up as anything.
No.
But more often than not, we find a picture.
Yeah, well, 2 + 2 = 4. We might make it to be 5, but from what I've been seeing, I mean, what you've analysis and what we've been talking about hasn't been too far away from the money at the moment. And
right.
Yeah, but
anyway, let's get off because we have our things to do.
Yes. Okay. Well, I will see you next week, Steve. Thanks for your time. That's right. Okay. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this discussion, can you please like, subscribe and share it? Thank you.